Well, welcome back, family. And if this is your first time, well, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about Passover. According to the first moon on the 14th day, what scripture says is your Pesach, which is Passover. Not what church today teaches, Christianity teaches, Catholicism and all these other one world religions are teaching. That it's on Easter Day, spring fertility, which is a pagan day, but they'll say that it's Resurrection Day, and we ain't doing it for those reasons. Well, those are excuses of men, and it's not according to the word. And if you are a follower of the Most High, you are not just a hearer of the word, but you are a doer of the word. So I'm here to challenge you, right? So iron sharpen iron. I'm not saying I'm Mr. Know-it-all, but what I do know, I will share with you. So let's go ahead and read from the book of Exodus, chapter 12. Verse 1. And if you have your scriptures, then follow along with the content. I will be reading from the BOI, which is the book of Yahweh. Now, Yahweh is the Most High, if people don't know who I'm talking about when I say Yahweh. I did a video. Check out my playlist. It's called The Truth About Ancient Paleo-Hebrew. That would tell you the Father's name. There is no vowels in Hebrew. In ancient Hebrew. So, let's go ahead and pick it up in verse 1. And Yahweh said to Moshe, Moses, and Aaron, in the land of Egypt, this moon shall be the beginning of moons, which means that this month will be the beginning of months. And it shall be the first moon of the year to you. So the first moon is our new year, if you're a believer. Not New Year's, according to this world, on January 1st. That is not New Year. That is a pagan holiday, a pagan ritual that some of you might need to renounce if you participated in that unknowingly. The two-faced god named Janus. Okay. Jeremiah 10:2. Do not learn the ways of the heathens. Do not learn the ways of the other nations. Verse 3. Speak to all the congregation of Yasharah, which is Israel, saying, on the 10th day of the first moon, each man is to take a lamb for his family, one for each household. So are you on the first day going ahead and gathering a lamb for your family, one for each household? I'm not. I'll tell you why. If any household is too small for the lamb, let him and his brother next to his house share it, having taken into an account the number of people there are. You are to determine the amount of lamb needed in accordance with what each person will eat. Verse 5, important verse. Your lamb must be without blemish, a male of the first year. So when you're going to Costco, when you're going to Walmart, wherever you're going, is that lamb a male? Is it without blemish? How do you know? And if you don't know, there ain't no taking no chances and just saying, hey, well, I want to have faith. And, I'm hoping that I'm just want to do the right thing. No, there needs to be an order. See, when they were doing it, they were catching their own lambs, and they were doing it right then and there. So it was different from then to what it is now today. Okay. But we're going to talk about how we can observe Passover in this study here. How we can observe it in modern times. I'm just talking about what we cannot do because there is no temple and we're not living like how they were living, So, and verse 6, and you must keep it until the 14th day of the same moon. Then the whole multitude of the congregation of Yasharah shall kill it between the two evenings. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the sides and tops of the door frames of the houses in which they shall eat the lamb. Okay, so there was also a preparation of this when they had the animal and how they slaughtered the animal. Okay, there is life in the blood. Okay, there was a certain procedure. When we go to Leviticus, turn with me, chapter 17, verse 10 through 14. Whatever man of the house of Yasharel, or the stranger, the foreigner, the Gentile, whoso journey among you, who eats any blood, I will set my face against that person who eats blood and will cut him off from among his people. Now, when he's talking about, eating blood, you might think that, hey, I went to the store and I got a package of chicken, I got a lamb, I got a deer, I got a, beef, and I got it and there's no blood on it. No, it ain't about that. What does it look like when you get it? It's about the procedure on how that piece of meat, or I should say animal, that precious life, how it was slaughtered, because you got to understand that the Father has a certain way of doing things, and when every animal was slaughtered properly in biblical times, it was cut at the throat and it was tilted at a certain position, and the blood was to pour out onto the earth where the dust will cover it. Today, there's a butcher, there's a I should say slaughterhouse. They're doing all types of things to the animals, and you don't even know if they were already dead. So when life is still in the blood is that when the animal was improperly slaughtered. If they happen to, kill it, shot it, killed it, and it's dead, and then they cut the throat. Or if they just, choked it, whatever they did to the animal, even though they choked it, shot it, stun gunned it, whatever they did, right? And it's dead. And then they cut the throat afterwards, and though they drained it, and there might not be no blood in it, the blood still stays trapped within the inside because it wasn't done properly at the right procedure as far as grabbing the animal when you first grab it, and while it's alive still, no harm to it, cutting at the throat, and then letting it tilt and letting the blood drain out. That's the proper procedure. So when you go into your stores today and you're going to go grab meat, your beef, whatever it is, how do you know? You don't know if it was properly slaughtered. Now today they're making 3D meat. They printed meat. Check out my other video. I think it was that Jesus make all food clean. No, actually no, it wasn't that one. It was the one about the Sabbath. And I show a clip in there about how they make. You can YouTube it. They got 3D meat. They're making 3D meat. You don't even know how this meat is being now today done and handled. So this is why the Father is bringing us back to the Garden of Eden diet. Just how it was before. But let me not get a little too much about that subject, because let me go and finish this verse right here. Right. Verse 11, for life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you to make an atonement for yourselves on the altar. It is the blood that makes atonement for one's life. So meat only came in and was eaten because of sin. Before sin, there was no eating of flesh. Animals were dwelling together. Only when sin came in that meat was permitted. And it was a thing that was more for the Levitical priests, for them to make the atonement. And it was a part of their portion that they were able to eat and consume some of the meat. There was a procedure, though, when they were to get the meat. They were supposed to boil it, so all the scum, when you're boiling meat, right, this like residue comes up, this like glob of brown stuff, you know what I'm saying? It's called scum, That's why they were boiling the meat, to get all the blood out of it, because blood equals life. It's very crucial. I believe this is the reason why the Father took me away from eating meat. One of the reasons why, and also for health issues. You know what I mean? And I feel much better today not eating no meat at all. So we're living in the times of Daniel. When Daniel did not want to eat from the master's table, he says, give me vegetables. You know what I'm saying? And we're living in the times of Daniel, the system, the Babylonian system. Okay? So let me go ahead and pick it up in verse 12. Therefore, I say to the children of Yasharah, no one among you shall eat blood, nor shall any strangers who shall journey among you eat blood. So when you get that animal from your market and you don't know if it was properly slaughtered, right? You are consuming blood, you know? So, verse 13, whatever man of the children of Yasharel, or the strangers who sojourn among you, who hunts and catches any animal or birds that may be eaten, he shall pour out its blood and cover it with dust. So you were supposed to go get your animal and slay it, well, slaughter it, and pour the blood upon the earth and cover it with dust. You know? Verse 14, for it is the life of all flesh. Its blood sustains its life. Therefore I said to the children of Yasharah, Israel, you shall not eat the blood of any flesh, for the life of all flesh is its blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off. Wow. I mean, that's pretty deep. You know what I mean? You know, so we go back to Exodus 12, right? Verse 12. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night and strike down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and animals. I will execute judgment of all the gods, Elohims of Egypt. I am Yahweh. And the blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you. And the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you. When I strike the land of Egypt, and this day shall be to you for a memorial, and you shall keep it as a feast to Yahweh throughout your generations. You shall keep it as a feast by an ordinance forever. Okay? So, Passover originally started in Egypt as a household observance. When we go to the book of Leviticus, chapter 8, right, and chapter 9, the priesthood and the tabernacle is now established. Okay? Then when you go to Leviticus 23, you know, it establishes the official calendar of Yahweh's appointed feast. Okay? So when you read the chapter 23 of Leviticus, he tells you on the first moon of the 14 days of Passover, then you're unleavened bread. On the first and on the seventh day, you have a holy convocation, a high Sabbath, you know. Then he tells you, you know, your first fruits, you know. Then he tells you your Shavuot, which is Pentecost, you know. Then he tells you the, trumpets, then the atonement, you know, then the tabernacles, right? So he lists his calendar, his dates on when you're supposed to observe them according to the moon cycles, okay? Now, we just had New Year's, right, which was on March 20th. March 20th was New Year's, okay? March 18th, astronomically, was the new moon. But according to biblical and ancient times, you have to go outside and go see when you see that first sliver, which takes 2 days afterwards to see it. So March 20th was the new moon, and you count 14 days for Passover, which will be April 2nd, will be Passover, okay? So that is a starting point for those that want to observe it in a modern time. You know, though we don't have a temple, we can't actually fulfill these feasts the way they're supposed to, but in a modern time, there is a way that we can observe the heart of them, you know. So when we go ahead and go to Numbers chapter 9, okay? Go to Numbers chapter 9. So Numbers chapter 9, verse 1 through 5. So we see that Passover started in the home first. That was the foundation, right? We see in Leviticus 23, the Father has established his calendar according to the lunar cycles on when we're supposed to observe these festivals, okay, these high Sabbaths, right? Now we go to the Numbers chapter 9, verse 1 through 5, where the father now has the first Passover, the second year after they came out of Egypt. Verse 1 reads, chapter 9, verse 1. Yahweh spoke to Moshe in the wilderness of Sinai, in the first moon of the second year after they came out of the land of Egypt. In the first moon of the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, let the children of Yasharah sacrifice the Passover at its appointed season. On the 14th day of this moon, between two evenings, you must sacrifice it in its appointed season, according to its ordinance and its ceremonies. You must sacrifice it. So Moses commanded the children of Yasharah that they must sacrifice the Pesach, the Passover. And they sacrificed the Passover on the 14th day of the first moon between the two evenings, between around 3 in the afternoon and sunset, in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Yahweh commanded Moshe. So the children of Yasharah did so. Okay? So, now, again, we see Exodus was the foundation. Okay? They were observer in the house. Leviticus 8 and 9, the priesthood and the tabernacle is established. Leviticus 23 is the calendars, the appointed time when we're supposed to observe this Passovers. And then we just read this right now. They're doing it for the first time in the second year, So now, when we go ahead and, this is before they entered into the promised land, okay? So the tabernacle is present, and this was the first Passover in the wilderness, like I said, in the second year, okay? Now, when we go ahead and we turn to Deuteronomy, okay? Turn with me to Deuteronomy chapter 16, right? Because the Father now has centralized on where the Passover would now be observed. It's no longer going to be in the homes, So he's now going to centralize where it's going to be done now in Deuteronomy chapter 16, right? Verse 5 and 6. And it reads, verse 5, you may not sacrifice the Passover within any of your cities Yahweh your father gives you. Verse 6, but only at the place Yahweh your father chooses to establish his name. There you must sacrifice the Passover at evening, at the going of the sun, at the season you came out of Egypt. So he said in verse 6, but only at the place Yahweh your father chooses to establish his name. Now, where did he establish his name at? We got to find out where he established his name to know where you're supposed to observe Passover. Well, if we go ahead and we turn to 2 Chronicles, and we go down to chapter 6, and we go ahead and we pick it up in verse 6, and it reads, but now I have chosen Yerushalayim, which is Jerusalem, so my name may be there. And I have chosen David to be over my people and And I have chosen David to be over my people in Yasharah. So he just said in verse 6 that I've chosen my name to be in Jerusalem. So in Jerusalem is where you're supposed to be observing the Passover, So we're not supposed to be doing it in our homes, having lamb and observing Passover in your house with lamb, Lamb, like we already discussed, needs to be a male, without no spot, wrinkle, or blemish, and within its 1 year and properly slaughtered. We already discussed that, okay? So it needs to be in Jerusalem, okay? So now, without a temple, we can still observe the heart of the feast, So How can we observe Passover today? Well, turn back with me to Exodus chapter 12. And we're going to pick it up in verse 8. Right? Then they must eat the meat in the night, roasted with fire. We already got past that part. You're not going to have any meat. You're not going to have any lamb. Well, what you are going to have is what it says here in the rest of the verse. With unleavened bread and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. So you will have unleavened bread on Passover, April 2nd, and you will have bitter herbs. Okay? Now, bitter herbs, eating bitter herbs is to remember the bitterness when they were in Egypt and in slavery, you know. And some bitter herbs is horseradish, romaine lettuce, endive, chicory, and radicchio. I think I said that right. So these are some examples of bitter herbs. So have your unleavened bread and have these bitter herbs, and read Exodus 12, read some scriptures about Passover and to commemorate and to honor that day. Okay. You know, so, and then when we read in verse 15, he says, 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. On that day before, you must remove leaven from your houses. So leaven represents sin. You know, it represents false doctrine. You know, so you want to remove all leaven out of your house. You know, excuse me. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day through the 7th day of Yahweh's feast of unleavened bread, that person will be cut off from Yasharah. Verse 16. So now here is the feast of unleavened bread. So we did the Passover, you know, now we're going to be talking about the feast of unleavened bread. We'll continue on, but verse 16, on the first day, there should be a holy convocation, and on the 7th day, there should be a holy convocation for you. So you are going to have a gathering with your loved ones on the first day and on the 7th day. No manner of work shall be done on these days, except that which everyone must eat, that only may be done for you. So you're going to have a high Sabbath. You are going to be cooking on this day, enjoying the time with your family, and just honoring the day in remembrance. Okay? There's no temple. You're not going to do any of that stuff, right? So then first fruits, okay? Now, first fruits, you're going to honor the Most High in spirit. You're going to offer thanksgiving in the beginning of a season. You're going to thank the Most High for provision. If you're feeling led, you're going to give to charity, you know, helping other people out, you know. So Pentecost, Shavuot, 50th day, it's a high Sabbath. You're allowed to cook, you know, have a gathering, you know. These are all found in Leviticus 23, you know, the appointed times, you know. So now you're going to have on Leviticus 23:24 is trumpets, you know, the memorial of blowing of trumpets, you know. Excuse me. Verse 24. Shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial blowing of trumpets, and a holy convocation. Okay, so you're going to be blowing your shofars. You're going to be blowing your trumpets, you know. You're going to be reading scriptures and honoring the Father, you know. Then you have the Day of Atonement. This day you are not going to be eating anything. You're going to afflict your soul, like it says in Leviticus 23, which means you are going to be fasting, okay, you know. So, and then you have tabernacles, you know. Some people today, what they do, that they would put a tent outside. They would build a booth. They would spend time with their loved ones, and they would have dinner, and they would just go over some scriptures, or they would go ahead and they would rent out a cabin log, and, you know, people do different things that they are observing the day to the Father in commemorate of his feast. Okay, so if this information is enlightening so far, hit the like button. Share. Because faith comes by hearing, and hearing from the word. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. So, but yeah, this is how we can observe the biblical times in modern time today. So I want to share with you this right here. What we do today according to truth. Since the sacrifice cannot be performed, we do not fake the sacrifice. We do not pretend we are priests. Instead, we honor the time. We remember the deliverance. We humble ourselves. We remove leaven, which is sin. Exodus 12:14. This day should be unto you for a memorial. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7 through 8. Purge out the old leaven. Keep the feast with sincerity and truth. The real focus is Passover is about deliverance, obedience, separation, cleansing, not tradition, not performance, not pretending. Many are doing it wrong. They are killing lambs without command, keeping it in the wrong place, following man-made calendars, ignoring the actual Torah instructions. Final word. Until Yahweh restores the land, the altar, and the priesthood, we keep what we can in righteousness, and we do not add to his law. Deuteronomy 12:32. You shall not add unto it, no diminish from it. Stay in order, stay in truth. Do not follow the traditions of man. Come back to what is written. Share this with someone who needs the truth.